We'll call the meeting to order at 6:05, Thursday, February 29th. This is the third meeting of, this is the third proposed budget presentation by our fiscal person and also a discussion with school committee members. Before we actually begin discussing anything, there's a paragraph that needs to be read before every meeting because we do have Zoom technology that's available. I'll read this paragraph. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording could contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background, this could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not. First item, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, Peggy. This particular point, the last second budget iteration that we had was a 6.1% increase over last year. And it was clearly detailed in the presentation. It was online on the QRSD website that there were reasons for this particular increase, and we had discussed them in the meeting. I'm now going to turn this over. In the meantime, the administrators at the school and the cost center directors, which are the principals, basically took a look at the existing budget, the 6.1% budget, and we're looking as to where they could actually, do some cuts without really significantly impacting the programs that we run at the school. I'm going to turn this over now to Colleen for any comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So I know that we reiterate this each and every time we talk about the budget, but this year is really different in many ways because I'm thinking of it in my mind as a bit of the perfect storm, right? Like we have decreased revenues from the state. That hasn't happened, I think Cheryl told me, in many, many years. And we have increased costs of goods and services. And I know we all know it personally, right? As well as the school district. But I've really tried to think long and hard, what is sort of different and unique about schools that makes this even more challenging for us? So, nationally, there are enrollment declines. We have the long-lasting impact from COVID. Our academic needs are greater, our social, emotional, our mental health, food insecurity for our families. And we also have had so many significant changes to required services and mandates for our students in education. So multilingual learners, we now screen for dyslexia. There's a tremendous amount of professional development that has gone into being able to not only screen for this, but also to address the needs of the students. We have new IEP process out there. School safety and security is more important than ever. And we're also trying to address the needs of chronic absenteeism. So, I thought maybe I could provide sort of an example to you about when one family would move into one of our communities, right? We're really unique in that we are a regional school district with each elementary. And so sometimes when one family moves in, even though they might have 3 students, it's a huge change for us at the school level, at the district level, and for funding. So I sat on a webinar last week because I was hoping for some really great ideas of how to address the needs of small schools. And so it was almost like they took our data and had it on the screen. I was like, wow, that is us. But we have these classes at the elementary level in our schools. And so basically, if we have 29 students in third grade, we have one teacher. But if we get 30 students in third grade, we say those numbers are high and we add another teacher. That right there can be an additional $60,000 in salary. Also, if a student moves to us and they come from another community, wherever it might be, but they belong to a collaborative, no matter what time in the year, we are now responsible for the tuition of the student and transportation. So if you have two students who happen to check both those boxes in one family, that can be a huge addition and unanticipated sometimes. So I just sort of present that because it really can cause such great fluctuation. And so what I want to reiterate is that with our budget process, we've really tried to put our students at the center of that and think about how we prioritize our services, our resources and materials that most closely impact our student and really create efficiencies for ourselves that allow us to be such a large organization and still run effectively. So that's sort of at the heart of what we've tried to do. And Cheryl will go over the budget presentation when she comes back. But it's a challenging year, and I know you hear that all the time, so I don't want to beat that drum, and I know everybody is facing it. So we just have to move forward and problem solve. So we'll talk about that. Cheryl, you're up.
Gus is going to put that on the screen for me. Yep. So how I decided I was going to start this presentation tonight, I think it'll be a rather quick presentation, is I understand that my budget subcommittee members have been on this subcommittee for a number of years, but we do have some new people on the committee. We also have some new administrators. So I just wanted to sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Just to go over how the assessment formula is used and how it's calculated so that people will know. Kind of a refresher course if you haven't remembered, but for other people as well. So there are two components of the assessment formula. One is the required local contribution, and that's the base. That's where we start with the calculation for our member town assessments. This number is calculated by the Department of Revenue and DESE, and it's based on data submitted by the towns. Then there is the community share of the operating budget that is greater than the required local contribution. After you subtract state aid, and any district revenue that is used to support the budget and the required local contributions, the remainder is allocated to our member towns based on the October 1 enrollment of the previous year. So the resident students that are with us as of October 1 this year is used to calculate the assessment for the next budget, FY25. So I did show this in our very first presentation, but here's a required local contributions of our towns. You'll see that Hardwick and New Braintree have very low increases in their required local contribution, while Barry, Hubbardston, and Oakham are higher. Hubbardston the highest, Oakham the second, and Barry the third. And that plays into what their assessment will be. Looking at resident enrollment, we went over this as well when we got the numbers from SIMS data that was sent to DESE. 4 of our 5 towns had a reduction in resident enrollment, while Hubbardston was the only town that saw an increase in the number of residents coming to school here this year. So it's important to note that one member community is not able to identify their assessment and how that may change from year to year by looking at only their community's numbers. And because communities share in the cost of the district's budget, how one community's numbers change affects everyone else's calculation as well. So I wanted to kind of use an example to illustrate what I'm trying to get to here. So I'm going to show if FY25's budget was level funded, a 0% increase, how would the member town assessments change based on the required local contribution for FY25 and the resident enrollment being used in FY25. I am also using level funded state aid and district revenue, although at this point with the governor's budget, we are losing $93,953 in state aid. So I hope everybody can see this. If not, maybe you can see it in your packet a little bit better. So at a level funded budget, and Jess, if you can just go down to that last line and kind of put your go down the last line, just kind of point to the very last line. So you'll see FY24 column FY25. And there, the budget for this year, $38,485,317, level funded budget. The top two lines show that we're using level funded state aid and level funded district revenue. This is coming right off of my projected revenue report that I show you during the budget process. I then have the required local contributions for each town and how they have increased over the current year. I have the required local contributions calculation and the total operating assessment. There are sections of this report that are hidden. I'm just hitting the main three sections of the report. So even though the budget would be level funded and the funding from the state and the district would be at the same amount of money, that doesn't mean that the assessments are going to be the same thing as they are this year. And you can see how they change. Barry's would go down by nearly 9.5%. Hardwick's could go down by 9.2%. Hubbardston's would go down by 4.2%. New Braintree, a 17.5% decrease. And Oakham, a 13.9, almost 14% decrease. So I just want to emphasize how much resident enrollment impacts the assessment. Okay? To further kind of picturize this, I made some graphs. Just could you go one more? Now, these percentages that are on here do not correlate to the last slide that I showed you. They're not the same. I want to make sure you understand that. Here I am just showing what percentage each town has as a percentage of the whole required local contribution for each fiscal year. So for the current fiscal year, on the left, you can kind of see in a pie chart where everybody's percentage of the total is. On the right-hand side is the percentage of the total for FY25. These are actual numbers, so it'll be actual percentages of the total. And if you look around the circle, they're color-coded. Everybody's percentage is less in FY25 except for Hubbardston. They had the largest increase in required local contribution. The next graph is about resident enrollment. As I mentioned, the resident enrollment is used to allocate the amount of budget over the required local contribution after state aid and district reserves are subtracted. Again, looking at FY24, you can compare to FY25. These are actual numbers again, because this is enrollment and we know what they are. Everyone is seeing a decrease except for Hubbardston. Now the impact is really shown on the next slide. And again, this, I have a little statement on here for illustration purposes only, because this is a fake FY25 budget. This is a level funded FY25 budget just to emphasize how required local contribution and enrollment affect that calculation. Barry, their operating assessment would drop from 33.97 to 33.51. That's not a lot, but when you put the dollars in there, it really is. Hardwick from 14.91 to 14.59. New Braintree drops from 7.11 to 6.86. And Oakham drops from 13.55 to 13.34. Hubbardston increases from 30.45 to 31.7. So even when the budget is level funded based on the new two components of the formula, Hubbardston's the only one that is seeing an increase for the new year. They're getting, what is happening is the other 4 towns are taking up a smaller part of the pie. The pie is the same. The pie is 38 million. The other towns are taking up a smaller portion of the pie. So Hubbardston is picking up the largest piece of the pie. And that's what I'm trying to say when I say you can't look at one number. You can't say that our enrollment went up by 20 kids. That's not a whole lot. We can handle that because not only are you paying for your 20 kids, but you're paying for the piece of the pie that the other 4 towns are no longer paying for. That's why there's such a huge impact in Hubbardston's assessment for FY25. Those 2 parts of the formula increased higher than anyone else's, and they're seeing the pain this time around. On this slide, I just put 2 slides that I've previously shown in other presentations together. On the left are the historical budget increases for the last 10 years. And you can see the only time that there's an increase in the budget over 2.5% in the last 10 years is for the current year. And that's because of 2 things for the current year. Only one for 24, 2 for 25, because this includes debt as well. The school committee voted to put $750,000 of E&D as a revenue source for FY24. There was 0 in FY23. So the budget has increased more, but if you look on the right-hand side, the full impact wasn't in assessments because of that $750,000 of E&D that was used. The right-hand side is just trying to show the increase in the budget in FY15, 2.3%, but as town assessments, 3.3%. And that's because since, I don't even know how many years now, probably back to FY05, we have had declining enrollment, and we have not received an additional amount of Chapter 70 other than minimum aid each year since that fiscal year.
Sure. Last meeting, when we talked about the projections from NASDAQ, didn't you say also that we were still going to see, can you remind me what that chart showed? There was declining enrollment in all the other towns, but Hubbardston was going to continue to grow.
Deb, let me see if I can find it just so I can say the right thing, okay?
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I just don't want to go by memory.
I mean, I just want to know if we should be preparing for this each year. If that's the pattern or trend they were predicting. I thought that's good. We can do it later if you want to.
No, I'm there. I just need to find it.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear us okay? I just want to do a sound check.
Stop sharing.
I don't think it was last time.
You know what?
Deb.
Do we have the presenter muted? Oh, that's your computer. Can you guys
Pauline,
hear us?
I can hear. Yes.
Oh,
We
okay.
can hear you.
Oh, you're making me panic for a minute.
We can hear you just fine.
Thank you.
Deb, I can't
fine.
find it.
That's
You know what? I think it might have been in my report, not
But
in
I
a budget
do-
presentation. It might have been in my report, and I don't.
I
have
don't
that
know
right now.
about the other towns, but I do.
What I remember saying, I think it was in my report to school committee last month, because we got our NESDEC report back. What it shows is we still have a declining enrollment in total, but that Hubbardston, and I can find it when we're done, Mark, Hubbardston is expected by the NESDEC projections to go up and will take over the amount of residents that are attending Quabbin and Barry in a few years.
That's what I was.
Few years in the future, yes.
But that was a little different than some prior projections that we had seen.
Yes, the
This
projections
is
definitely
the most
changed.
recent projection.
Yes. I got it the same day of the school committee meeting, so that's where it is. It's in my report. Okay. So what the right-hand side of the screen is just trying to compare is the historical budget increases and compare it to, in the yellow column, the total increases in assessment to member towns. And because if our budget goes up by 2% and you get no money extra from the state, then the minimum increase to the towns is going to be 4%. It's double, because it's usually a 50-50 split for us, and if they're not giving us anything, that amount gets at least doubled. It all depends on what debt and operating costs are. But I just wanted to bring that back to the committee's attention, that our budget increases have not been uncontrolled over the last 10 years. And the reason that assessments are so high is not because our budget's high, but because our revenue from the state is lower than it has ever been.
Let's ask a question.
Of course.
The minimum local contribution, right?
Required local content.
Required local contribution, right? You tell me, like, just reiterate the components that the state uses that go into that. One is wage data, right? Is that correct? That's
So I actually,
income data, and the other one,
I actually had that in last time's presentation. I got to make it big enough so I can see at least.
The other one's the equalized valuation.
It starts with equalized valuation, and that is increased. It was using the 2022 equalized valuation of each town. It then takes the 2021 income level of each town, and it applies the percentage of the municipal revenue growth factor for each town. And that's how they get the numbers. But where those numbers actually come from, I don't know. They come from the town side, and I don't know where they come from. But that's town data that goes to the DOR.
the perception throughout the years is that some towns haven't, throughout the years, paid really what their fair share was. Is that correct?
Well, that's target share, and yes, and for FY25, none of our towns will be at the target share. But for example, the percentages that are used in each town are different. So Barry's municipal revenue growth factor is 3.07 for FY25, so 3%. For Hardwick, it's 2.98, so again, 3%. For Hubbardston, it's 3.79.
Which is higher, yeah.
Which leads to that highest increase in required local contribution. New Braintree's is 3.6, and Oakham's is 3.9. But on the other side, their enrollment's going down. So the two components go together into the formula. But that, I did present that all at the last time.
I know. Thank you.
So Cheryl,
We knew we heard it.
in years past, I know we talked about how recent the town has done an assessment. As far as like if they've just done an assessment that also has an impact, or is that the case or is that not the case? I don't know if we ever really settled that.
Well, I believe all of these are using the same equalized valuation show of 2022. I don't know if that means that they all did their reval in 2022, and they're using 2021 income in all of these calculations. So it's even ground, I would say.
All right. Yeah, I mean, because some towns do an assessment, property assessments every 3 years. They have different rates, right? I believe.
I think that they have to stay on the same schedule by law every 3 years or whatever the law is.
But I don't think they're all.
But I
in that
don't
same
think
cycle.
they're all on the same cycle.
Right.
And at one point, the towns had talked about trying to get on the same schedule. This was a few years ago, when we were talking the same
It would kind of
type
make
of
sense.
issue. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They could,
Be more
Go.
fair, seems like.
the 5 towns could, I think we had
Well, then
talked
we'd
to
all get the
Senator
big
Goldie
whack.
maybe way back at the time when the towns were thinking about doing that, but that's something they need to do on their side is
Right.
to organize and go to the state level and find out if they could get on the same schedule with that so that their assessments didn't fluctuate from town to town so drastically from year to year.
I was just wondering if that was an impact.
It's not my area. I don't know the town side of business.
Okay, no worries.
The next slide, please. So it is important for the members of the committee to know that our general fund budget is not the only funding source we have to fund the operations of the district. So each year I provide this list as well. So next I have what other funds and what types of funds we use for general operations of the district. First and foremost, our highest use is from school choice. And this year I broke this number down by what we usually use in school choice and what was added this year because we did not cut every program that we instituted under the ESSER grants that have been in place for the last 3 years. So school choice is a revolving account. Usually we budget around $2.8 million. We're using 2.8 for next year. And the ESSER positions that we had in the grants over the last 3 years coming out of COVID, we are putting those into school choice. There was one program we got rid of completely. There were a couple other programs that we made minor changes to, but we have 9 positions that were in ESSER last year or this current school year for $605,000. We also used school choice for transportation. We run four buses, three this, according starting this year, 3 buses for school choice transportation. We use the school property use. We do have outside agencies using our buildings. We have the CAPS collaborative renting space. We also rent space to the after-school program. And we use that money to pay for some custodial salaries. There is a grant called SOA, Evidence-Based Practices, and it has 3 positions in there. IDEA is a special ed grant, and John, I think there's a new name to that. You'll have to let me know what it is. 14 positions are in there for almost $900,000. The early childhood grant provides a paraprofessional salary as well as supplies for $29,000. Title I has our interventionist positions for $475,000. We have SEL Mental Health, which is basically contract services, supplies, and stipends for $37,000. The Innovation Pathways Grant, put in the new Innovation Pathways program at our high school. We have services and supplies and textbooks, field trips and internships that are required of that program in there, $125,000. Civics teaching is used for textbooks, software licensing, field trips and stipends, $29,000. Open Sci-Ed is at the middle school. Oh, I hate when I have spelling mistakes. Implementation is the same thing. Textbooks, software licensing, field trips, and stipends for $48,000. There's an instructional leadership grant. Professional development is in there and stipends for $3,000. Project Lead the Way goes in conjunction with our Innovation Pathways programs. There is instructional software, huge equipment, another spelling mistake I don't understand. Now I'm all discombobulated. For $7,000. The CDC Drug-Free Community Grant is actually a 5-year grant. Are we in year 4 or 3?
Year 3.
We're in year 3. That's $176,000 for this year because you're allowed to carry forward money that was not spent in the previous years. And our comprehensive school health grant is also a 5-year grant, and we're using $40,000 there. So there's over $6 million coming from revolving accounts and grants that are also supplementing our general operations of our district. You'll notice I didn't include the school nutrition program because really that is not operations, that's a self-sustaining program, and all of our staff is paid for out of that revolving account. All right, so some changes of where we've been. As Mr. Wigler said, when he opened the meeting, we all got together. We looked at some items that we thought that we could make some changes from our round 2 that we presented to you a couple of weeks ago. And at this point, we have a list of positions and expenses that we are willing to reduce the budget by. 7.25 more positions and some mostly plant and facilities items are being reduced. So we came up with another $796,000 worth of cuts. I'll go to the next screen only because it kind of puts it together. Thank you, Jess. One more. Right there. So we presented, actually, we did not present you with the first proposal. We presented the first round of our budget that we did as an administrative team. Plus, we made some reductions and we brought both of those proposals to you in one night. The first round of cuts, we cut 2 positions, and those are reductions in force. Those are not requested positions. There'll actually be 2. RIF means reduction in force. We had cut $666,972 in round 1, brought that to you on January 22nd. As I stated, we are bringing you forward another 7.25 positions, which equals $796,717, or in total, and again, these are all reductions in force, 9.25 positions, and $1,463,689. I have the appropriation control report for you so you can see the differences in categories from the proposed 2 budget to proposed 3. And then the last 2 columns take you to what the difference currently in the proposed 3 budget is compared to the current year's budget and the changes. With these 2 rounds of reductions, our budget stands at $40,061,897, or a 4.1% increase over the current year. One of the major, as I showed you last presentation, I went through every appropriation category saying where the increases and decreases were. One of our main big increases was the transportation contract. Oil actually went down, so that was good news, but the transportation contract definitely was a big hit to our budget. So as an overview, which I just stated to you, but is a little simpler seen here, we started with a 7.9% increase. We dropped to 6.17. We are tonight 4.1. I made a recommendation to the superintendent that we do not make further cuts. We know that historically the budget that comes out from the governor's cycle is usually lower than what comes out from the House and the Senate. And I think we really should look at what our revenue will look like in the next round of the state's budget before we make any further cuts on this. It's always difficult. You'll see on that list, there's a few positions that are not due to open positions. So we were doing reduction in force due to attrition where there are retirements we may not be filling, but there are some people that are actually getting laid off here. And to go further than this, be pretty difficult to say, you know, Jess, I'm sorry, but we got to cut your position in the next round of budget. And then when the House numbers come out, oh, Jess, will you come back? You know, you're going to kind of lose face there. So at this point, we do not want to go any further than those 9.25 positions.
Cheryl, what does RSA stand for? I'm sorry.
Rural School Aid.
Okay.
Where's that?
Changes to date from preliminary budget to proposed number 2.
Okay, but where does it say RSA?
Transfer it off.
Like building and grounds.
Transfer to rural school aid. Yes, transfer to rural school aid. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's where we are tonight. I told you it would be quick, but do we have any questions at the table?
When do you have to bring this to the town? When do you have to present our budget to the town?
Public hearing scheduled on the 12th. We will discuss further if there's any concerns from other school committee members, concerns from the general public, concerns from the town. But if there are town meetings, what's the first town meeting? Is it?
May.
I don't have the state yet.
I think somebody goes in May, but May and June.
Nobody goes in May. Hubbardston's usually first. Hubbardston is usually first for town meeting the first week of June. We don't have town meetings in May.
I thought it was a deadline when we had to, or have you already presented it to the towns, our budget?
No, not at all. The budget has not gone anywhere except for, has not even been voted by the school committee yet, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Nutter. So we will be having a school committee meeting, is it next week? 2 weeks.
Budget hearing is the 12th?
On the 12th. So what I'm hoping tonight is, if the committee feels comfortable, that they bring this number forward for the school committee meeting that will open the public hearing on the 12th. We need to have a vote of a number to have the public hearing. Then we'd have a school committee meeting on the 14th. We will get something out from the House in April. Usually we get it on the April vacation week. We'll get numbers out from the House. We'll look again. Numbers have to go to the towns for the April 30th assessment letter.
Okay, that's the date, okay.
April 30th is the assessment letter. And then we most likely will get numbers out from the Senate in May. Again, we will look at about what our revenue sources are and if we need to go further in making cuts in the budget. And then the school committee generally takes a vote at the end of May so that we go into town meeting with where we're hoping to get our budget passed.
Now, did you say we're laying off people?
Yes, in that list, you will see.
From 2 to 3?
You will see on that list if what we are cutting. If it's an open position, that means somebody is retiring and we're not going to replace it. It's still a reduction in force by attrition. And you'll see next to it, it says reallocate tasks or something like that. So those cuts are for positions that are open and we're not going to be filling, but you will see it says cut administrative support position, cut administrative support position. Those will be layoffs. There's, so if you want to go down, I'm calling.
Sure. Yep, I'm happy to. I think, so the administrative support positions will be layoffs. The open director, teaching, learning, and support is Joe's position, Joe Wyman, who left us. So that is a cut, but we don't have someone currently in it. The high school teacher position potentially will be a layoff. The guidance counselor position is through attrition. The kindergarten teacher position is also, so in the case for the kindergarten teacher, I'll give you an example of this so you can understand it. One of our schools, as I was talking about the idea of a small school, has a bubble class of fifth graders that will then be moving on to sixth grade. So currently they have 2 teachers. However, the rising fifth grade class will not require those same 2 teachers. So one of those teachers we'll have to transfer that teacher to another building to fill this kindergarten position, which honestly will require a bit of dominoes because they have different certifications. So it's not a layoff in that case because we're able to fill it internally. The special education position, we have an open position. And the intervention tutor was a new request this year that we are cutting. The same goes for the paraprofessional position. So those are not, right from the get-go, we're just cutting those. So it doesn't impact layoffs. Any other questions on any of that? There's a lot there. I hope you see that we try to really.
Do you want to entertain questions?
Sure.
We will entertain questions from anybody online. Should there be any questions? Jess, is there anybody?
There's people online. I haven't seen any hands raised.
Be happy to entertain any questions? Comments? No comments, no questions? Any other comments or questions from the school committee members in the room?
I think it's reasonable not to make any further cuts until we're hear our revenue. As the House and Senate budget work through, I mean, we're going to impact programs next, so.
Exactly. I would entertain a motion to bring this number to the public hearing in the full school committee. Need a second?
Second.
All in favor? Is there anybody, nobody's online, right?
No.
Any abstentions? Motion passes and the 4.1% number will be brought to the public hearing. Which is, it's a good reduction from the 6.1 And hopefully, we will get a positive, number from the state, which somehow I've been listening to the state concerns and, they've got a little bit of a budget issue too. Concern. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second, yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned at 6:45. Thank you.